Hi, my name is Zach,
And I'm Ben.
and welcome back to the Movie Vault. Today we are reviewing The Banshees of Inisherin. Is that how you say it?
I believe so.
Okay. It's a 2022 film. It was nominated for one Oscar? Maybe one, at least.
At least one, because I think it was nominated for Best Picture.
Okay, yeah. Well, that makes sense. And it stars a few different people that have been in the ring before, like Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Barry Keoghan, and Carrie Condon. I don't know how to pronounce any of those names. All great cast. They did a great job. It is a movie basically about these two guys. And what would the official synopsis be from you, Ben?
I'm trying to remember their actual names before I start, because that's kind of important. Pedrick and Colm.
Okay.
All right, Pedrick and Colm. So imagine two people, they're best friends, although we never really see them as best friends until we introduce them. We at the start of the movie, Pedrick and Colm are in a disagreement, although Pedrick doesn't understand why. And the rest of the movie is a wedge that continues to grow between their friendship, as Colm pretty directly tells Pedrick that he just doesn't want to be friends with him anymore. But Pedrick is, he doesn't have any other friends, and he's not as okay with being isolated as Colm is. So he continues to seek out Colm and try to figure out what his angle is or why he's doing what he's doing. Whereas Colm pretty much just actually wants to be alone. There's also some other characters that are important. Siobhan is his sister. I could be pronouncing that wrong. Is Pedrick's sister. And then Dominic and Pieter Kearney are also a part of this movie. Pieter is the local policeman.
Oh,
and
it's
his
Shaban.
son,
I just remembered Shaban.
Shaban
is the
Shaban.
sister.
It looks weird in writing.
Yeah.
And Dominic is the son of Pieter. Dominic is known as like the dumbest person or the dullest person in town, and Pieter is like his abusive father, and we find out in more ways than one. So it all centers around this very quaint but isolated island called Inisherin off the coast of the mainland in Ireland. And of course, if you don't know anything about Irish history like me, a lot of the things will probably go over your head as far as like what's going on the mainland with the Civil War, and just in general what it's like to live on an island and that's isolated in Ireland. Like, it's pretty for like the typical resident of the United States, it's not a common experience. And there's a lot of like, they use all authentic language and jargon. It's English, but it's definitely a very distinct brand or dialect of English. But the point that it starts to get out of hand a little bit is, and that was an unintentional pun, is Colm gets so fed up with Pedrick that he threatens to cut off a finger every time Pedrick talks to him, which Pedrick thinks he's bluffing. So eventually Colm actually does cut off a finger, and he cuts off a couple more fingers. And then Pedrick it continues to kind of spiral in terms of his anger, and just realizing like that maybe Colm was not really a guy that he really wanted to be friends with anyway. But it really hits a boiling point when one of the fingers is eaten by Pedrick's miniature pony. And so Pedrick blames Colm for the death of his pony, and then sets Colm's house on fire with warning. Colm knows this is going to happen. And Colm is actually inside when the fire goes off, although at the end of the movie, Colm is still alive, so he must have left the house, presumably. And they talk briefly at the end, and they look in the mainland and they see the Civil War. And Pedrick kind of says, well, there's some conflicts that will just never end, and I think that's the right thing. And then he just leaves. So nothing is resolved as far as their conflict, and it seems to insinuate that it'll be going on. There's also a little side tangent story with Siobhan as she, I think, kind of realizes that she's around some pretty hopeless, depressing people on the island, including her brother. And she is a lot smarter than them because she reads and spends time learning. So she goes to the mainland to become a librarian eventually, which Piedric is unhappy about, but he would never leave with her. He'll stay on the island until she comes back and visits, because he's a pretty set in his ways. There's also a local bartender who's involved in the movie, and there is a character named Mrs. McCormick who serves as sort of she's not as much of a character as she is like a prophetess almost.
Yeah, that creepy lady.
Yeah, she's creepy. Nobody in the town really likes her, and she says strange things that foreshadow things to come, and she jokes with people, and she serves kind of an interesting role in the movie. But overall, it's a very compared to some of the other movies that were nominated for the Oscars, it's very focused on two people. It's a very intimate story, but it is definitely off kilter and goes in directions that aren't expected, especially with the finger cutting, which gets rather intense, and some of the interactions between the characters that seem hyperbolic, I guess, in comparison to what's actually going on in their lives. So, Zach, what was the audience's reaction to this movie?
Yeah, there were a couple of things. I think a lot of the initial reactions by the people who aren't movie viewers are like, "Oh, it was tough watching the mutilation aspect of the film." I think some of it was kind of, but I think the shocking part about it was when he just threw the finger against the door, or when he found the finger in the plant when he opened the door. When Colin Farrell's character Piedric did. But I think it's kind of more of a shock factor, like, oh, he actually did it. So I'm not sure that. I think it was crucial to the plot, and obviously it was, because it's the thing that actually destroys the relationship and causes the donkey to die, stuff like that. But that was kind of a thing that's in all of the reviews that I read, so that was just kind of a tough thing to watch. A lot of people rated it as like this masterpiece, this thing that someone compared it to Citizen Kane even. Just
wow.
One of the first Google reviews up on there is he says, I watched it in the theater and I remember just having this feeling just like I would imagine someone would have coming out of Citizen Kane in 1941.
Well, it was nominated for 9 Oscars, so
well,
the
that
Oscars had a feeling about that too.
Oh, I'm glad 80 years later someone can say something similar, but I don't know. I highly doubt that, as we just reviewed Citizen Kane pretty recently. But yeah, I think as a character film, it's really, really good. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. I could have given it 4.5 easily, but I didn't. And I think the aspect of this is just a depressing, horrible, terrible island that people are on, and they just have to live their lives. Nobody has real jobs. They're just kind of moving around and schmucking around doing nothing. And I think people slowly start to realize that, starting with Colm kind of, I feel like, convinces what's her name? Siobhan. In the same way, he twice throughout the movie he goes, I think you know what I mean, this dread. And the priest kept asking, how is the despair? How's that going? So I think that's kind of the root of where this is. But yeah, I think the audience particularly liked Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson as they are just feuding with each other, just like the Irish stereotype. And it's interesting because Brendan Gleeson is actually an Irish actor. I don't know if Colin Farrell actually is. I
think everybody in this movie is Irish.
Okay, so
which makes sense because they all do so well with the Irish dialect that you're like, there's no way that they're not. I checked on the main actors. Let me check on Kerry Condon.
Yeah, and this is a movie that requires subtitles.
Yeah.
Some things are just hard to understand.
You kind of get used to it, but like the way that things are said are just like, it's like backwards of what would typically be said. I can't even really attempt a sentence because, so Kerry Condon is an Irish actor. So
okay.
like all the main characters, and probably it would be even more likely that the side characters would be. So it's very authentic. And I even assume Martin McDonagh, Martin McDonagh, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I would even assume that he is he's a British Irish playwright, so I guess maybe he has some ties to to Britain too. But yeah, it's very authentic in that aspect.
Yeah, and I think the Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson have some chemistry already in other movies. I think they, what is it? The Bruges
In Bruges. In Bruges.
Oh, I was reading the Bruges. Yeah, in Bruges. Yeah, so I think they have chemistry from that, and I guess it was pretty similar. I haven't seen the movie.
I know that's one that's like very like certain people will be like, oh yeah, it's such a great movie, but it's not one you hear about a ton.
Yeah, the other movies by this guy are like Seven Psychopaths.
I remember, what is it, 3 Billboards out of Ebbings, Missouri or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that one when it was like nominated. That was like before I watched movies, but when I started to pay attention to like the Oscars and stuff,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is a strange name.
Well, yeah, Martin McDonagh is kind of known for the Oscar bait movies specifically. This one was actually nominated for 9 Oscars. Didn't win any, unfortunately.
Wow, none.
Everything Everywhere All at Once stole, I think, one in every single one of those 9 that it was nominated for. Something
Interesting.
Like that. So you think that Everything Everywhere should have lost to this?
No. I think I like this movie better, but I think that Everything Everywhere All at Once is a better Best Picture.
Because it's flashy?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I don't know. I just think it's hard to say, I guess, for sure, because what does really make a Best Picture? Maybe if I was going to vote for Best Picture, I'd probably vote for this one.
Okay. Yeah.
The ones I've seen.
I think I might as well. I think this movie really gets the characters right. I think just the breakdown and demolishing of this relationship is almost beautiful.
Yeah.
It's almost a great thing that you want to happen. You almost want him to cut his fingers off at the beginning. Even though you cringe at the fact that he does it, you almost kind of want to, like, oh, I kind of hope that Colin goes back, or, Padraig goes back.
And you can't decide who you're, like, on their side, because sometimes one person will be, like, do something that you're like, that's completely idiotic and mean. And then all of a sudden the other person's doing something that's completely idiotic and mean, and then you switch. You're like,
sure,
maybe that person has a point.
Well, you almost wonder if Brendan Gleeson's character has some ulterior motives besides he wants to be left alone. Like, he has this larger, more sovereign plan that he's enacting to teach a lesson, or because he has something more important going on behind the scenes. But it slowly gets revealed that it really is just face level, and he doesn't want to be friends with this guy anymore because he thinks he's stupid.
Yeah.
And that's really the whole premise. And you start to realize, like, oh, this guy who I didn't really know and I thought could have a better plan than this isn't really as great of a guy as I thought. And you start to see this really nice guy, as they like to say, kind of deteriorate as it goes on. He becomes kind of jaded because he loses trust in the people that he loves, and his donkey dies and his sister leaves and his only other friend dies, but he seems to not even care about that, to be honest.
And think about, what is Piedric's number one characteristic about himself?
I guess it's just niceness.
Yeah,
right?
he's nice.
Yeah.
But by the end of the movie, you're like, I don't know that this guy's nice.
Yeah.
Or what, like, and then you question, like, was he ever nice? Like, what does it mean to be nice, I guess, is something that is maybe not the deepest theme of the movie, but it certainly is there.
Sure. So a quick theme that I thought about was just how stubborn do you have to be to not want to be friends with someone so badly that you just kind of cut off your fingers? You know, I've not wanted to be friends with many people in my life, but you kind of just put up with it. And I'm guessing he's getting older. He's older than Padraig. I'm going to say his name wrong the entire time. But he's older than him, and he's just kind of figuring out, like, oh, what is my life going to mean at the end of this? And then the way that he solves that is by setting up this system where he slowly loses his grip on how he's going to change the world. Like, he loses fingers, which are the very things that he needs to write music and play the violin.
Yeah.
And to change the world, as he said. That's the only outlet he had. So maybe toes would have been a better option or something else.
Yeah.
But he seems to just go down this self-destructive path, and you kind of realize by the end of it that it really is just despair. He puts on this face that he's ending the relationship because he wants Padraig to stop talking to him because he's dull, because he has to, make a difference in the world. But really he's just this lonely, depressed, desperate person who really doesn't care if he is in the house when it's burning down, or if he cuts off his own fingers and walks away nonchalantly.
And there's got to be something to be said about how he's basically telling Padraig, I'm more willing to lose my ability to do the thing that I love, which is play music, than to be friends with you. like that's how he's trying to show him, because he's like, Piedric, I've been telling you, I don't want to talk to you. Like, in some ways you have to commend him for being direct, because like you said, most people are like, I don't want to really be friends with this person, but I'm just going to do it anyway, which you could argue is the right thing to do. But aside from that, like, people generally aren't that direct. They usually have more subtle, more manipulative ways of trying to not be friends with people than to just tell them, I think you're boring and I don't want to be friends with you. So you almost have to be like, well, he's being very honest with Piedric, but then he's like, well, I'm being honest with my words and you're not listening to you won't believe those. So now I'm going to show you with my actions, and I have to come up with something drastic enough that you realize just how much I don't want to be friends with you.
And it's almost kind of sad, because at first you feel bad for Podrick, or whatever his name is. I'm just going to say Podrick and stick with it. And you can almost feel bad for him at the beginning, but then you realize, like, why does he keep going back? Stop. Please stop. And you kind of get a little nervous and angry, like, no, this shtick where if you're confident and just barge in his house and knock on the door and just walk in, that's not going to work. He's still going to cut off his fingers, and he fell for it every single time. He cut off his first finger, his pointer finger on his left hand, and then he cut off the other 4 right away.
he said, now I'm moving it to 4. Yeah. I'm just cutting off all 4.
Which makes me like his character, because I think as soon as he said, you're dull and I need to do something, I kind of started to not relate. That would be dumb. That would be very selfish to relate to that. But, the sinful side of me kind of related to that, like, oh, yeah, like, I kind of understand what you're saying now. But it also and then in the middle of the movie, you kind of start to realize, like, okay, maybe you start to understand these characters well. And Podrick is kind of just this, he's so sweet, and you want him to become friends with him again. You want him to finally succumb to his plea. And you also are kind of like, he's cutting off his fingers, Podrick, don't go back. Yeah. And you're kind of trying to balance that throughout the movie. So it's kind of nice where there's not just this character that is doing something wrong, and there is, but they both seem to be taking things too far. And then an unintentional thing happens, and then it gets worse, and it's forever impossible for that relationship to be restored.
Because Piedric, he doesn't exactly have no one. Because
he has his sister, but it's kind of just, I don't know. You can't. He's not gonna like relate on another level with his sister. His sister's this reader and kind of like a more of a smart person, a non-dull, as you could say. But his when it comes to him and what's Brendan Gleeson's character? What's his name again? Oh, Colm. When it comes to him and Colm, people said that they were kind of unevenly matched when they were friends. So it's not surprising that they're not. So I understand what you mean. Like he doesn't have no love, but he kind of loses all that love right away. And you can't just have like your sister, you can't just have like your friend even. It's just kind of
Yeah, and I think I was starting to say, like, he has Dominic, but Dominic has problems of his own, and
I don't think anyone cared about Dominic.
Which is sad. Dominic was pretty much the runt of society in this movie, because he's viewed as creepy by, which he is creepy, so that's kind of fair, by Siobhan. We can't say any of these names. And then he's beaten and molested by his dad, who's the police officer of the town. Imagine that, like, person who's supposed to be upholding justice in the town, which, by the way that he deals with Piedric too, by like literally beating him up, you get the sense that like the style of policing and everything in this town is
he's the only police officer.
He's the only police officer, which means he has all the authority and power, I guess.
And nobody seems to care that he beats his son.
No,
because I don't think anyone cares about Dominic.
No, in fact, for as nice as she seems, I can't say Siobhan. I just need to keep saying it so I say it right. Siobhan. She doesn't want him to be in the house, like, even though she knows. But then I guess he is hitting on her, so that doesn't exactly. And he finally like shoots his shot, but he like.
When he shot a shot, that was sweet, though.
Yeah, it was. He wasn't like he did it in a sweet way. It was romantic instead of sexual, which you kind of wondered at the start of the movie based on how he was talking to Piedric, what his actual intentions were. But obviously it wasn't going to work out. Like they were, I mean, he's a lot younger than her. She is not thinking about that.
You don't have to explain that.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And like you feel bad for him, but also you understand that like would just never work. But even he finds a tragic end, which is kind of ambiguous, where Dominic is found in the lake, meaning, and I think Pietrik says he must have like accidentally fallen into the water, but there's also, it's left open that he could have committed suicide, which they reference at one point, like somebody jumping into the lake or something. And like, you kind of get the feeling that a lot of people are depressed in this town, and like suicide is not super uncommon. And Pieter or whatever, the police officer also references a guy who stabs his wife 6 times. Yeah. So there's like the protection for like domestic violence isn't really that high. Tensions can get out of hand, it seems like. And people focus on really, really small disagreements and like really hold them against each other.
There's no content.
There's gossip going around the post office. She gets mad at people when they don't like bring in the gossip, the post office lady. Like, so just the whole environment of the island is just all of these relationships that are like people who are like tearing other people down, and just like toxic is an overused word, but it kind of seems like that.
It's funny because you have this spectrum of distraction, like tons of distractions and no distractions. This is on the no distractions end of the spectrum, whereas the society we would live in is the multiple distractions, most distractions possible on the spectrum. And either way, you get nasty gossip, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not that necessarily the amount of distractions determines how sinful man is, but it's that you can kind of see that no matter what, it's not the distractions, it's us. So that's what it made me think of, like, in this society that's bleak and low numbered and just isolated from the rest of society. They don't even know what's going on with the war. That's a huge war that's ripping apart the country, and people don't even know about it. And it's interesting that they're just living their lives as if it's normal. Yeah. And what their normal is having a few friends and a couple guys. I would get so sick of that, and that's because I've grown up with more people. And I think it also shows that like humans need good relationships in general. Or, you know, suicide rates will increase. You know, we saw that in COVID even. So I think it's interesting that aspect is shown pretty clearly. And I'm wondering, is this a real place? Am I stupid to ask that?
That's actually a very good question. I didn't even spend that much time thinking about it.
Do you think there are islands like this?
Yes. I think there has to be islands like this. Otherwise, I don't think this movie would have been made in the way it was. Like, this feels... It feels like it could be in some...
Feels accurate. Feels like it exists somewhere.
No, Inisherin is not a real island.
Okay.
But there are Irishman. It's literally called Irishman with 2 A's. And Inisherin are real islands.
Okay.
And those are the 3 largest islands on the west coast of Ireland. Yeah. So yeah, he probably just combined them.
Yeah, so this reminded me of the show Lost. Have you ever seen that?
I have not seen it, but
it's like they're on an island and there's a few of them. There's like 20 of them.
Or Gilligan's Island.
With Jack Black or the book?
Wait.
I'm thinking of
old TV show.
Okay, never mind. I'm thinking they changed the name and did a movie with Jack Black.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Never mind. That's stupid. The movie was stupid. This reminded me of that show because a lot of the drama in the show was pretty petty, but a lot of times it was life and death. And in the same way, it's like this, like life and death. If someone dies, they don't care that much, but then they care about the petty little things, like you just said. So I think it's just kind of like when you don't have any distractions, these are the arguments that will come up. They'll always come up, and no matter what in what society. But it's interesting, just that this is the way that they form. This is the way that they manifest, is through these petty disagreements. It will always be petty, but the disregard for life is still there. The pettiness is still there, but they're just walking around with 5 of them. You see the same people every day. Your brother and sister sleeping in the same room with no plans for the future, nothing. It just seems so weird. The days aren't segmented. You just go to the pub when the bell rings at 2. It's just...
You drive the cows, you sit around.
Yeah.
You're like, I didn't even know that he did anything at the start of the movie. I was like, he doesn't have a job.
That's what
but
I
then
said.
I realized, he sort of has a little bit of a job moving the cattle around and stuff.
I think you just live.
Yeah. In some ways, this is some people's how they think that you should live, right? Because it's like there's not really a lot of work. You don't have a ton of stuff, but you kind of share collectively, I guess, because everyone's sort of bartering with each other. I'm sure they feed a little bit off selling stuff to the mainland. but like basically you just get to sit around and drink and like like have community all the time.
I thought you were about to say commit suicide.
No, well, I mean, I guess that is one option, but
everybody seems to like each other. People in the bar.
I mean, yeah, but you start to see that it could be fragile. But it's also just that, like, if there's something that happens that does break a friendship, it's like there's not anybody else to turn to because those are the only people that are there.
You and I know that. We went to a very small school.
Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of similar. Where, if you break up with your girlfriend in your high school class, you're stuck with her. You can't avoid her and get a new friend group.
Because everyone's in the same classes. Exactly. Pretty much. You have to see each other.
So that's why this isn't possible, and we easily avoid these things. And I think Dominic said it. Is he 12? Like,
yeah.
What is wrong? And you start to wonder, like, this man really is kind of fragile. But then you kind of feel for him because you realize he really is this sad, lonely person who doesn't think his life means anything. And in 50 years, no one will remember him. And that's where we're led to believe that this movie will go. But, after the fingers were cut off by his own system that he set up, that dream is over, that he can be remembered. So, yeah, it's a depressing movie. It's dark. It's also hilarious. It's like a comedy tragedy, as they call. So, yeah, I don't know. What did you think about the acting?
I thought the acting was so good. Now, it helps that they're all Irish, but I have no idea. Like, it seems like it would have still been difficult to, like, pull off this exact, like, dialect. Like, I don't know what dialect they typically speak or if this is similar or different or anything like that, but it seems like it would have been challenging. I mean, I've seen Colin Farrell in plenty of other stuff, and he, like, never talks like this. But then he could be just talented and just be able to switch to whatever is appropriate for whatever movie. I mean, he was in The Batman. I mean, he kind of does everything. He's an independent. He's in The Lobster.
What else? I've only seen those two where he's in. Have you seen others with him? Killing of the Sacred Deer?
Killing of the Sacred Deer is probably I really like him in that one. Trying to figure out whether. Like, a lot of his early movies, I'm not familiar with these as much. But he's going to be in the next Joker movie.
Oh, seriously? As the Penguin?
Yeah.
Interesting.
He was in Horrible Bosses, which I've not seen.
Wait, he's going to be in... Wait.
Joker 2 Full I Do. He's going to be in it. So
he's in Joker 2.
Yeah, but
he's the Penguin in
the Batman, but I doubt it's possible he's the Penguin.
That would make more sense because there are two separate Jokers. It seems
it seems unlikely that that's what they would do.
Because actually, what's funny is Barry Keoghan is the Joker in the Matt Reeves Batman.
In the Matt Reeves Batman, and Barry Keoghan is also in The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Yeah, that's
and he's very good. Like, that's probably what I would consider to be his best performance.
You don't think his Eternals role was his best?
That is really good.
Just joking.
Man.
Okay. I do think...
I saw him in 13 Lives.
He's in that.
He's in that movie. I watched that for a class.
And he's never been the main character
with
of
Viggo
anything,
Mortensen.
has he?
Well, I mean, I guess he hasn't been I'm trying to think, like, what his... Well, Saving Mr... No.
He's only a supporting actor, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I think in the bigger movies, he's typically a supporting movie.
Do you think it'll be like a Miles Teller, where it'll probably take until his late 20s to finish?
Oh, he's already older than that.
How old is he?
He's got to be in his 40s at this point.
Who are you talking about?
Colin Farrell.
Oh, I was talking about Barry Keoghan.
Oh, Barry Keoghan. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, of course, Barry Keoghan.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like he's different than Miles Teller because I don't think he'll ever be, like, in a role similar to Miles Teller. Like, he'll never be, like, the cool guy unless he, like, really...
He'll be the
because he's
the
always
independent actor in the artistic movies.
Yeah, he will be. He'll be like Joaquin Phoenix, I think. That's a good arc for him because he always has a very... like eccentric delivery, kind of like I'm a little unstable, a little uncomfortable. You saw that in this movie. He's in The Killing of the Sacred Deer. He's like a little bit more menacing and like off-putting even. I mean, you really just have to see that movie to see like why. He was also in Dunkirk, which I don't really remember. I remember Dunkirk, but I don't really remember his.
But another supporting actor role.
Yeah, but he was a supporting actor in that too.
So I'm wondering if the only difference between him and Miles Teller and maybe even Joaquin Phoenix would be he's starting out pretty young to be in these artistic movies and be a breakout character and kind of a character that stands out. Only because in this movie I thought he was one of the best actors.
Yeah.
I think Colin Farrell probably is the best actor in this one. I would say Barry Keoghan is the second best.
Yeah. Brendan Gleeson just didn't get a lot of what he was directed to act like was a lot more like stoic just because of his character. So he did good, but it's never going to grab your attention as much as the other characters.
Yeah, you're right. He was written that way. And maybe he stands out. I haven't seen him in others, so I can't really judge him like that. But I think whenever I see Barry Keoghan, I always remember that he's in that movie. He's not a forgettable character in any sense. And I think every role he's had, he's done pretty great.
Yeah.
I would even say, The Eternals was it was written terribly, but I think he did pretty well in that as well for his dull character. But yeah, I think he'll be an actor that will become mainstream pretty fast. I think in the next 5 years he'll be in a role not as big as Miles Teller, sure, but I think in 10 years he will be. Yeah. And I think beyond that he'll be, yes, maybe a Joaquin Phoenix type. He'll never be the Brad Pitt, you're right. But he could be a good in-between. I think he'll be more mainstream than Joaquin Phoenix. I think he'll be less big movie than Leo or Brad.
Yeah. I think the question is, I don't think... I also see something like... I don't think he's a character actor or like I don't know for sure. I guess I didn't read whether or not he was like a character actor, but like somebody like Daniel Day-Lewis, you almost could see... I'm not sure he has enough range to do what Daniel Day-Lewis did, but like maybe there's just a lot of potential there that he could be really actually one of the greats.
I think he could be a lead is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's a lead and elite. Like
elite and a lead. An elite lead.
Yeah, an elite lead.
An elite.
Like if you were making a big artistic movie, whatever that means, like
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Like you're like Martin Scorsese, somebody who like bridges the gap between commercially successful and artistic movies, then which he's going to be dead by the time we're talking about this probably, unfortunately, just because he's like 80 years old.
He directed a new one this year.
It's crazy. Maybe he'll never die, but
they'll make.
But if you're somebody like that,
still.
who can do that, you would like want to bring Barry Keoghan into your project, I think is what we're saying.
Yeah, I think you're right about the Daniel Day-Lewis comment. I think they won't write roles for Barry Keoghan like they do Daniel Day-Lewis. Like they wrote that Lincoln character for him.
That's true. Maybe not yet. He hasn't done anything to prove that they should do that yet.
Yeah, I'll always leave it open, but I also don't think he'll get to that actor status. Like
right. He's also not insane. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis, by all accounts, is like very committed to most of his things.
But the thing about Barry is that he really is a likable actor, and I think he can open up himself pretty quickly. He was born in 1992, so that'd make him, 30?
Is he that old?
Yeah.
I would have thought he was younger. He just has a young face, though.
Yeah. And that, I mean, he looks a little strange anyway. That's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. He does have kind of a baby face. But yeah, and I think in this movie particularly, he stands out because he really is a genuine character who is kind of fleshed out in a good way because they make him seem creepy at first, like a dull, stupid side character who's just there for comedic relief and levity. But then by the time he asks out Siobhan and even kills himself, you kind of realize like, wow, this is a good character. This is a character that at the dinner table when he was talking with Patrick, oh man, like it'll be okay, man. Like he's serious about it, and he's always like there for him, and he's like, cursing at the guy who wronged his friend. He's the guy who's pretty loyal. So I think that's why he's likable. That's a writing aspect. That's not a Barry aspect. But I think the way that he portrayed it was added to the writing, just because he his mannerisms, like the way that he would like look up and down and not make eye contact and kind of stutter and be all over the place, and you could tell that his character was written to be uneducated and kind of dull in some moments, as they stated, and it's nice to see him portray that in a way that's endearing, so that it's genuine, because that he's not putting up a front like these other characters are. He knows exactly who he is. He doesn't pretend, because when he finds out that Siobhan reads books, he's like, oh man, come on, because he knows himself. He knows he's genuine about it.
Yeah,
he knows that he's not all that, and he values who he is. I think he's the foil of Podrick, because Podrick is kind of, he's told that he's nice and that it's good quality by some people, but he doesn't like that. He says, oh, you just told me that I'm, the nicest of them, the nicest of the men, but that seems like the worst thing ever right now. And he says, I used to think that was good. So he's kind of not confident in himself, whereas Dominic is very confident in himself, because he even gets on Podrick's back when he like gets in his face even where that rhymed, but he gets in his face when he says that he told that one guy who's coming to visit, like to get music lessons from Colm, and he told him to go because his mom got hit by, or his dad got hit by a red van. Apparently his mom
which
got
his
hit.
mom did, which is what a coincidence. There's no way he knew that.
That was hilarious. But yeah, for me that was cool because Dominic's character is so like okay with himself and who he is that he got mad at him and said like, "Oh, you're not acting yourself. I thought you were the nice guy." And he gets mad at him and goes away, and that's the last time that they kind of talk.
True.
So I think Dominic is more than a character who's just there for comedic relief and, asks out a girl and kills himself when she says no. That, it could be like a meta joke, but really I think he really is to show the downfall of Podrick and the just kind of the selfishness of Colm and how Podrick is becoming like Colm, kind of jaded and not nice, particularly. So
yeah, I think so. I came up with another reading on this film that is maybe should never be considered the main reading of the film, but it's an interesting one that they reference at the end.
Go ahead.
So they reference at the end the Irish Civil War, and it's throughout the movie you see them go onto the beach and there's cannon fire. And so I was wondering whether this is like this whole movie is sort of an overarching critique of the Irish Civil War that was going on in 1923. Yeah, I think, which again goes back to when this film was set. So I assume this was set in like 1923.
I thought it was 1921.
1921. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know much about the Irish Civil War, but from what they said in the movie, it seemed to be a conflict that was between two different warring factions of the IRA, who would be known for some other stuff in the future, and then.
But what do you mean? Go into detail. I don't get that.
And then another group, but it's like, what were they fighting over? It was probably something that was petty, and there's two groups. And remember, the one guy was like so excited about executing people. So like the relationship between the two men in the movie is also symbolic of the civil war that's going on on the mainland in like an isolated, smaller group where one person does one thing and then another person retaliates, and it keeps getting higher till somebody's burnt somebody's house. So like there's full on war, and then the war never gets resolved.
Maybe
and it
there's
keeps
something
going on
there.
and on.
Maybe there's like an idea there for sure.
I'm wondering I don't
what
think
the
it's
specific representations would be, such as the police officer, where he's the one who likes executions.
He doesn't care because he's profiting off of the war.
So he's the government.
Yeah, he's not the government. He's like the arms dealer. Like he's the person profiting off the war. He doesn't care what the side. is.
You don't think he would be the Irish government?
Well, there wasn't a government. That's why there's a civil war. I mean, there was a government, but there's somebody fighting against the government.
But who would be the profiteers? The arms dealers only?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose the government could be profiting off the war.
Okay.
I don't know enough about the Irish Civil War to really go too in depth with
can't
this.
Memorize every civil war. So.
Yeah. So I was just
sounded demeaning.
I was just wondering whether there was something there, like even if it was like a subtle like sort of thing. It might not even be subtle because they reference the Civil War so much.
Yeah.
But it's not. I mean, it's not that you can find a direct reference to every single thing, but it's more like, here's an example of individual people and their civil war, and then it's like in the background there's an actual civil war going on.
Yeah, it's just to show that maybe these characters do represent a side of the war, and like they're trying to point out that it was petty. I think you could be right. There might be something in there. I just don't know who Podrick would be and who Colm would be, like what groups of people those would be, because I'm not familiar with the war. But like it could be. Theoretically, it could be exactly that.
It was the IRA versus the provisional government of Ireland, and it was after the Irish War of Independence against the mainland.
Did one of them just cut the other off?
Which he references because he says that it was great when they were all together and they were all killing the British. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then, so that did actually happen, of course, in history. And then there was this Irish Civil War soon after, because obviously you go through the we're revolutionaries, but then you're like, oh wait, shoot, we have to set up a government, but then not everyone's happy. So then there's another group that like wants to fight against that, and then there was like a guerrilla phase and other stuff. I don't know that there's any references to people cutting off fingers, But it seems like to make any sort of like really cohesive argument about how much this references the Irish Civil War, you would have to like do a really deep dive into history. That'd be a fun video essay. But then you might do all that research and realize that it isn't really that similar, and it'd be kind of disappointing. Or you could just shoehorn it in and just really, I could just try to shoehorn that is the main point of, not even the main point in the movie, but a point in the movie.
Now, I think the biggest question coming away from this movie is, why did Colm do that?
Do what?
Why did he cut him off?
Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty obvious.
Why?
Because he was boring, and he was depressed, and he realized, me spending time listening to this guy, because from what it sounded like, he didn't do much of the talking.
Yeah. And
Pedrick did all of the talking. So he was just going to waste all of his time listening to Pedrick for the rest of his life until he died. And he didn't think Pedrick was going to change and all of a sudden become an asset to him. He did kind of have maybe a little bit of a utilitarian view of people, where it's like, oh, this person's not really doing anything for me.
But I think that the movie tries to show that that's not the reason.
Really?
Because I think that's what Colm says. But I think the movie over time, where he hints to Siobhan, like, you know what I mean, not talking about Podrick's dullness, more talking about, like, what is the point of all this?
Yeah, like there's a bigger,
there's an external agent
conflict
rather than him talking with his dull friend. So I think him cutting off that, I think it was just like a shield of like, oh man, there is this despair, there's this empty void, and I don't want someone who's so nice in my life. And niceness for him is dull. And I think that's actually, I genuinely think, and that's fine if we disagree, but I genuinely think that's what the movie was pointing at, like on like a factual sense, because there are many moments where his actions wouldn't make sense if he actually thought his friend was dull. And he puts on the show to everyone in the town where he'll say things out loud like, he's never been so, maybe I'm starting to like him again, stuff like that. And he only does it with the people that he wants them to think that way.
That's true.
And he also talks to him when it's just him, but not in front of people. So like when it's just him in the house, he'll talk to him a little bit. He'll still cut off his fingers because he has this internal despair. But I think it's an external thing that's kind of doing it. Because especially when he says like, Siobhan, you know what I mean? Like you know what I'm talking about. Because she says, do you ever get lonely? And I think that's what he's hinting at. Like, I think he knows that she's lonely as well. So loneliness wouldn't cause him to cut off his friend, would it? So I think there is something external going on as well. Yeah, you're
right. Because he could do, if he really just didn't care about this guy, he wouldn't go to the lengths that he did, right? Like the action that he takes doesn't line up. Like he could say, oh, he's bothering me, so now I need to take drastic action. But like he could do other things that would be way more.
Yeah, exactly.
Like literally just ignore him and not talk to him and not answer him. And like, what would he do? Like eventually you would think that Pedrick, despite his tenacity, would eventually give up if he just like, if he didn't say, like if Colm didn't say anything. And we do see that it's not that he doesn't care at all, because there's moments where he sees Pedrick get beat up and he still helps him. And then his horse dies and he actually feels bad about the horse dying because he didn't mean. At first, I didn't pick up on that he ate the finger. I must not have seen the shot well or something. I didn't pick up on that the horse ate the finger.
Oh, and I was like, pulled it out of the mouth of the horse. You might have missed that.
I must have missed that, devered my eyes for a second. But because it didn't make sense to me, I was like, what? Colm all of a sudden is just like murdering his horse. I was like, wow, this took it to another level. But then I realized, oh, it was an accident. So then I was like, okay. Because then that would change your whole perspective on Colm if he were to have actually maliciously murdered the horse.
And it really isn't Podrick's fault. So you do feel bad for him. None of this should have happened to him. But he does become jaded because of these events. So it kind of also shows like nurture is a part of it.
Yeah.
His nature might be nice, but after these events, he becomes pretty jaded. Another thing I thought was, although their relationship never resolves, it kind of resolves the storyline and like, yeah, Colm's decision is what happened, and that's going to be what it's going to be for the rest of their lives. And I think it kind of stays on that just because I think the resolution was when he burnt down the house and saw his friend in there and still walked away. I think that was the resolution. I think there's an epilogue at the end where they talk on the beach, just further confirming that resolution. But I think it was a resolution, and it concludes the story because I think that's just the end effects of his decision. And he never once changes his mind. You never even see him falter on his decision, Colm's decision. So I think it's just he made a decision, and there really isn't a story. It's just showing what's playing out. There really isn't like...
Well, you never see before. So the whole story just plays out after this decision has been made. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of interesting part. Also, but I thought, to your point about nurture, like Pedrick, like his level of drastic action is almost more insane because he rides away from the house after seeing Colm in it, and you realize he's okay with murdering this person. Mm-hmm. Like he has gone from I am a nice person to being like I am murdering this person and I am okay with it.
It really didn't take much.
No, it didn't.
One friend.
No, that's the thing. You're like, it makes you question sort of Pedrick's. I mean, he seems like somebody who doesn't. He's like a bag in the wind more than he is like. There's really no morals or anything that's keeping him grounded. Just this loose sense of like I treat people well, so they treat me well. And so once that's challenged, like once he treats people well, quote unquote, and they don't treat him well, then all of a sudden like he like spirals out of control. Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting thing to see too.
Yeah, and that part never resolves as like his character is just going to be like this forever maybe, and we were led to suspect yes, but you can't imagine that he'd be like that forever because he still tried a lot for his friend Colm. He went out of his way so many times, and you could tell how hard it affected him.
He was in tears. Although, was it because he was so lonely and it disrupted his life that he was lonely, not having him, or was it because of Colm?
I don't know. That's another good question. Maybe that leaves that open. I don't know if that...
Because I don't think he thought that much about who Colm was or why he was friends with Colm until after Colm decided not to be friends with him.
Yeah, he just kind of thought, we just talking like normal talking.
Yeah. There's not... The depth of thought is not there in Pedrick that is there in Colm, which is why people thought that their friendship didn't make sense probably.
Huh. Yeah, that makes sense. I think the external thing that would cause Colm to make his decision would be like something like depression or psychosis, witchcraft. No, I don't know. But it really is like loneliness and isolation and stubbornness, the realization of his own mortality, stuff like that. Yeah. Kind of his mark on the world. Why isn't that, why would I value that? But what I mean by the main decision that doesn't make sense is why would he cut off his fingers for this? Yeah. Why would he cut off his fingers to stop being friends with this guy who he thinks is so dull? If I think someone is dull, like you said, I would do different actions. I think his actions express an external agent, as I said. So, yeah, and that's pretty good for the characters. I think overall the cinematography was pretty beautiful. It was bleak. It was kind of dark, and the ocean shots were pretty cool, and it was a beautiful island. It was pretty green. The acting overall was great in that because they would kind of use the landmarks as well throughout the movie. The script itself was hilarious. The way that they talked, there were many. I felt like there were many modern references, like touche. Like these Irish people would not know what touche means. Maybe. I don't know. And he goes, it's French. And apparently Dominic knows French.
Yeah, I think that was a funny moment because Dominic was supposed to be like super dull, like more dull than Pedrick. And then he's like one-upping Pedrick in terms of like what he knows. Yeah. So that was kind of a funny moment. There were definitely parts at the early part of the film that like made me laugh, which is where the comedy aspect comes in. I think it got a little bit more somber by the end, but like unless you're like think that the hyperbole of the whole situation is hilarious. Which it seems like some people, the mutilation was so intense that they wouldn't necessarily see that aspect. But I think if you watch enough movies that are like a little bit gory and gross, although I was still glad they never actually showed really the finger like mutilation itself. That would have been hard to watch, I think, for me. But like everything else was like, it wasn't really that bad in my opinion. So then like you can see the bigger picture and maybe like find it a little bit comedic too.
Yeah, I was more grossed out by the donkey puke than the actual fingers. The stubs didn't really affect me that much.
No, you're like, that's a finger, it's cut off, whatever.
But then I was like, ew, donkey puke. I was like, I wouldn't touch that dead donkey. It's gross. But yeah, there were many funny moments throughout the script. Just the way that they talked, they would like when the bartender would talk and then the other guy would just repeat him 1,000 times.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
And the other people, the way that just the relationships that they had were just kind of funny. Everybody picking on Dominic and him hiding behind the wall for the old lady. And
oh yeah, because he accused his sister of doing that, and then he did it. I was like, oh, that was so clever.
So there are a lot of. I think it's what is it? Tragic comedy, comedy
tragedy.
I don't know, something. And
Black comedy.
Sure.
Whatever you want to call it.
And I think that goes to. I think that's a pro. I think the combination of those things makes this movie stick out, because you will think about this movie and you can't not think about the comedy, and you can't not think about how dark it was. So. Yeah, when in other movies, you think of like, Everything Everywhere All at Once. You just think of the craziness that happened, or The Whale. You just think of the characters, but with this, you do think of two things: comedy and tragedy. So that's why I think it was awesome, and it kind of reminded me of a Quentin Tarantino movie a little bit, just a little bit less gory and a little bit less vulgar in their language, but they still had a lot of FECKs in this. But there were.
You don't feel as bad because they don't say like
exactly. It's not the way that we say it.
Yeah,
it's not as bad.
They do occasionally though, and it seems to symbolize something when they switch the E.
Almost like it's worse.
Yeah, it's worse when they switch the E to the U. That might just be us viewing it as a U.S. audience.
Like when they pronounce it correctly, it's so much worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot of the language is coarse, but it's I'd still say it's less vulgar than Quentin Tarantino movies in most aspects. But it reminded me of that because it's dark comedy, and you have these characters who kind of have these dark things happening around them, like death and disease, and they're just kind of laughing about it almost, or like nonchalantly walking past or thinking about other things real quickly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think there are a lot of things that make this film kind of feel different. I'm not really one about feelings, but the aura, whatever you could talk about this film, whatever. I don't know.
The missing scene.
Maybe I could say the style. The style would be a better term. The style of this film was pretty great. Just, it's very depressing. I came out of this film but
so beautiful.
Yeah, I came out of this film like, that is really sad. And then I came out of this film like, that was really funny.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure if salt and sweet are always good together, but in this it was pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. And I you don't always recognize it, but like there are certain things like the lighting, like, or the coloring of the movie is just distinct in its own way.
Like I can visually think about Colm's house because there were a lot of shots of the water, and you can picture exactly where it is because they took advantage of the landscape.
Yeah, I think it's the landscapes that maybe make everything stand out.
And they had like the opening shot came down on the farmland, the closing shot was like,
and they
going
used
up
the
on
beach.
farmland.
They used a lot of different like natural scenery throughout,
with beautiful waves crashing in the background. So it is like, it's almost like ASMR.
Yeah.
You have these guys talking about the stupidest things, cursing constantly while the waves are crashing in the background. And it really is a slow movie, but by the time the movie is halfway, you feel like it could be over. I think I was 45 minutes in and I was thinking like, wow, this storyline and these characters are already so well developed, because it doesn't give like a day when they were happy and then gets into the plot. It starts right on, he goes up to his house and he's not talking. That's the first scene. So I think starting with that and then exploring the characters in this conflict, seeing how they react, really gives more of who they are than let's give them what their normal looks like, and then let's put these stresses on them and see what's different, like the scientific method. I think this is better in movie form.
I think this is where people who want to study screenwriting, obviously like however you say his name, McDonagh.
McDonald's.
It's probably McDonagh. That's probably what it is. He makes it look easy, but he probably spent years developing like his skills to the point where he could write something like this. But like a standard script that would have messed this whole movie up. Like it would have like, oh, we have to have background information. We have to do this and that. I mean, a standard script, they wouldn't have even made this movie because it was in Ireland. It was too niche. But because of McDonagh's like specific angle that he has, and I'm guessing he's a playwright too, that probably like in a movie that relies on dialogue and very, very interpersonal connection, I'm guessing being a playwright probably lends itself well to like this style of movie. And then you're working with actors who are like, they want to be like, good actors who are known for being in critically acclaimed movies, and you want to be nominated for the Oscars, like all those things. But you see how you can take like aspects of like traditional storytelling and then like bend the rules a little bit. It's like, you know, the rules, but then you can like bend them to fit your specific vision.
These
for the
rules
story.
are bent. These people's teeth were great. Like, a lot of the dialogue wasn't really accurate to the time and the setting. Their clothes were clean.
You
and
didn't
nice.
feel like you were in 1923 Ireland or 1921 Ireland, like, because I looked at this and I was like, I don't know where I am, but like, it could have been any time and I would have believed it. Yeah. Like, it makes sense that it's not modern because nobody had smartphones or anything, but like, it just felt sort of ageless. Like, it could have been any time in the 1900s.
And were there vans back then? What's a bread van? Like,
that's true. What is a bread van? Was that a cart? I mean, they had automobiles, so I guess it could have been bread vans.
I mean, I didn't know if they had them there.
Not on the island, I don't think.
Okay, just on mainland, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a lot of bread. It's pretty good. Melon bread.
And of course, we didn't even really touch on like the religiosity of the movie, but like you see like their interactions with the priest too. I don't know. I don't have too many interactions with priests, but this guy didn't seem like he was like the cream of the crop. And the priest,
this guy was great. He was this is the guy you want to
tell
tell
like
everything.
None of these, like, they went to church and everything, but like none of the decisions they made were particularly like seemed that influenced by any sort of internal desire to like do good based on God's standards or anything like that. So it was all like very surface level, like, and ingrained in the culture that like you go to church, but it didn't seem like that important of an aspect when it came to individual decisions.
Yeah, and it shows that the church was kind of wrong too, and the priest just like the priest is like, how dare you accuse a man of the cloth?
You're right. He got so like butthurt by a comment that was made that he couldn't even go on with
that
his
he made
job
before. So I mean, there are a few different things, but the priest does bring out a few good thoughts. You know, like he's talking about like, you did sin, you were self-mutilating, something like that. And he's like, oh well, you got me there 5 times over.
You're like, oh, yeah, self-mutilation, that's not good.
He's like, despair, not despair, come on, but oh yeah, you got me there. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of shows what that would look like. And then the creepy nun lady, she looked like a nun, but I don't think she is, and she's I don't know, I wanted to say a witch, but every time I saw her, she like creeped me out. And when she was on the other side of the river and she was like making a face, like, and then she started moving her hand like, come to me, and it zoomed in on her like figure. I was like, oh my goodness, this is the freaky lady right here. But yeah, I think she was fun to the plot, because even she said like, 1 or 2 people could die this week or something like that.
Yeah. She was like, at first I was like, oh, she's just an old lady, because she was just sitting chatting. And then all of a sudden she was just this creepy figure. And then even at the end of the movie, she's watching them. I was trying to figure out what that symbolized.
She just comes and sits down.
She's just sitting there watching them like converse. You're like, oh, that's kind of...
I mean, that's kind of who I would like to be in the future. Just like walk around and all around our town, Ben, and just talk to our friends and family and be like, someone's going to die this week. You better pray it's not you and your sister. You know, something like that. And just when people are having these terrible arguments in life and death, you just watch, and I just like see a dead body in the river, poke the stick, bring the dad to it, and that's all I do. And
right,
burning some sacrifice across the river, and like, come here, like, just I would love that. And walking around at night and day, just never sleeping, I would love that. I'm already on track for that. It's good.
You already got that one figured out. Oh man,
one day.
Yeah. In short, I think the reason why I would vote this over Everything Everywhere All at Once, although I like both of them because of this, is that this movie felt like it brought something unique and groundbreaking. I don't even know they're groundbreaking, but just so it was so itself. So like, it didn't feel like I could...
It's so you.
I could reference a movie and be like, oh yeah, Banshees of Inisherin. It's like such and so. It was just such in its own universe and its own place. Maybe it was similar to In Bruges or whatever, so maybe like people would be like, oh yeah, it's just like that because it has the same actors and everything.
People keep comparing it to that, so I think I need to go and watch that.
So I need to watch In Bruges, but it just felt like, in comparison to the other movies that were, which I forget because there's like 10 movies that are nominated now.
What did it used to be?
I used to be like 6, and then
Well, now
at some point,
we were oversaturated.
So here are the movies that got nominated. It was Everything Everywhere All at Once, Top Gun Maverick, Women Talking, The Banshees of Inisherin, Triangle of Sadness, The Fabelmans, All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: Way of Water, Elvis, and Tar. So out of those, I've seen 1, 2, 3. I've seen half of them, which is kind of like more than I had expected to see. And then like The Fabelmans, I can be like, okay, that's sentimental because it's Steven Spielberg. Like, there's no way that movie is like so good that it's probably not one of Spielberg's best.
Same thing with Elvis. And I thought the audience reaction wasn't the best for that.
Yeah, I feel like Elvis is another one that's like, and even Avatar: Way of Water. Like, it's a good movie, but it just doesn't feel like
it's not an Oscar movie.
It doesn't feel like an Oscar movie.
Oscar movies have more characters.
Tar, I'm guessing I would have similar reactions to Triangle of Sadness. Maybe it would be a little bit more interesting. I don't know, because it's a character study.
I need to watch Tar because it's been compared to Whiplash.
Really? Yeah. Yeah, I think it's more of a character study, so I might like it. Triangle of Sadness, I felt like, was the epitome of all of the movies we watched last year, where they were all about like the wealthy class and the lower class, and it was, I don't know, just kind of
just getting tired of it.
It just got a tired plot point, and I wasn't even sure.
Barbarian, what were the ones that
Barbarian, Vengeance was like that.
Gosh.
What's the one with Harry Styles?
Don't Worry, Darling. Exactly.
Don't Worry, Darling.
Yeah, all those movies to me are the exact same.
Yeah,
and they're forgettable. We're trying to remember them right now.
Yeah, we can't even remember because they all just feel like the same movie. Really, I would have rather the Batman been nominated than Elvis, probably.
I need to see Elvis. I don't know.
Women Talking, I have no opinion on because I really have no idea. Top Gun Maverick is like a perfect action popcorn movie, but I don't think it quite holds to the standard that the Oscars.
If it wasn't a sequel and this was a new idea introduced, it wouldn't even.
So with only seeing half of them, I'm willing to say that the two that should have been like competing for it was Everything Everywhere All at Once and The Banshees of Inisherin, and unfortunately, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Maybe, I don't know that it really matters that much, but it like mopped the floor on every single one.
I'm wondering if the Fabelmans would be in there.
Maybe it could be.
I
could
heard
be underrated.
It was really good.
I could be underrating it. I've heard good things about it.
Out of the list of the ones that I've seen, I would probably see Tar and then that next.
Yeah. All Quiet on the Western Front.
Wait, was The Whale in there?
The Whale was not in there.
Not in there for Best Picture.
It wasn't in there for Best Picture. I think it just got like Best Actor and maybe Best something.
No, sporting. I think only Best Actor.
Yeah, and that won.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would guess that Aronofsky. I don't know. I would guess other movies. Did Black Swan get nominated? That's my go-to.
Aronofsky.
Although Requiem for a Dream is crazy. Yeah, he talk about somebody who has a style. All directors end up having a style at some point.
Michael Bay style.
Otherwise, yeah. Otherwise, people don't remember them.
True. It's the only way, Colm. You got to be.
Even Scorsese has a style, and he's made probably a ginormous variety of movies. Really, although he's made a decent amount of
with
mafia.
the same people though.
Yeah, so but he always has the same people. There's always consistency.
A lot of times they have Italian accents.
So overall, it's I look at that list of 10 movies and I'm like, there really weren't 4 or 5 movies that could have replaced some of those movies, but maybe there were, maybe there weren't.
I honestly think The Whale should be above 5 of those.
Yeah, probably.
So
I need to watch it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I need to watch it 6 times like Ben Avery.
What? Crazy.
He watched it 6 times in theaters.
Crazy. Yeah, I'm not gonna watch it again. Probably just once. It's good for me. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But Sadie Sink was good in that. But yeah, overall, I think I stand by the 4 stars. I think that's a fair assessment. I just think because I don't know. I don't have to explain myself, but I will. I think the 5-star category is for those groundbreaking movies where it clearly is groundbreaking. And this movie, not only would the audience liked it, but the critics overall liked it. Fans of Martin McDonagh, what is it? McDonagh? Whatever. Fans of him might have been a little bit disappointed, but overall, I think I liked it. I need to watch his others to see how they compare. And even if they're better, I think I'd still like this. Maybe it would push it down a little bit comparatively. But I think the style of this movie pushed it above. And it was just a combination. I don't know what part of this movie was bad. The acting, cinematography, writing. Style. I think it all fit together very well. Sure. And I don't see any dragging aspects of the film. I don't even think the pacing was bad. I think the pacing was fine. I think maybe the only thing was there was some repetitive back and forth between. But luckily, they skipped from 1 finger to 4 fingers, so that sped up the process. If it was all 5 fingers separately, that would be a 3-hour movie. So, yeah, what do you think?
I think I'm kind of on the fence between 4 and 4.5 for this one. I think I would probably give it 4.5, just because I agree it's not a 5-star movie. It's not. It just doesn't have that.
It's just
that
not
feeling.
as sharp.
Doesn't have that feeling to me. It didn't make that big of an impact. Obviously, sort of like of an evolutionary thing, like what is a 5-star to me at any given moment. But it wasn't quite there. But it definitely has that like super impactful. Like if I wanted to study film, I would be like, this should be something that you should study to see like different things. And then it just felt like unique, and it had some heart, but also like a little bit of the stuff that I like with the ambiguity and the sadness, and maybe showed like a little bit a side of life that's a little bit more depressing and sad, but might make you realize that like this is the way that some people that we interact with, maybe more people than we think, are like, this is how they view life on a daily basis, even though they don't live in Ireland.
Yeah, that's true. So I guess 4 stars it will stay for you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Well, I mean, with that, I guess 4-star we've kept our consensus. We've been pretty even on many movies. I feel like we used to disagree more.
Yeah. Maybe we just, I don't know, see things. So now we're just molded into the same person. There's no Ben and Zach. It's just the movie vault.
Sure.
I'm just kidding.
No, that's fine. But then we'll have one of these moments where you cut me off and I just plead with you, Ben.
I'll be like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah, and you will.
You're incorrect.
You will cut off your fingers. No, you will cut off your toes so you can't run.
True.
Because your dream is to run. Because deep down you're making irrational decisions and you're just depressed. Well, I'm over here. And
I was going to make like a whole joke at the start where I was like, oh, I'm going to cut off my fingers, Zach, if you talk to me again.
And I did it now. Great.
And then I forgot about it. So now I'm mad at you. This is the wedge that's driving between us. He beat me to my joke.
And people think I'm Irish because my red hair.
Right.
So I can claim like maybe I'm already jaded enough where my story arc is complete and I can just skip to the cutting off the toes. We'll be good.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, I suppose we should.
I suppose
that we should close the vault.
Sure.
We should cut the. That doesn't really work.
Cut the vault.
Cut the vault.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. That's why I said it doesn't work.
Okay.
We should close the door to the pub.
Okay. At the bell, ready?
Yeah.
3. Wait, do we have any things to say or no? Follow at the.
Oh, yeah. We're really bad at this. So I was gonna shout out our Letterboxd.
Oh, that's good. We have a
because we
Letterboxd.
are both active on Letterboxd.
Oh yeah, our separate accounts.
Yeah,
Yes.
Titanium Vulture is mine. Don't ask me; it's stupid.
And
But
mine's
that's mine.
also stupid. Mine is Zach ZACH 122-420-122420.
Yep.
It's just 2 different ways of saying that. So, yep, just search us up, and if you find Titanium Vulture, you'll also find me on the friends list.
Yep.
So.
And then the Movie Vault Pod on Instagram, Movie Vault Pod on Twitter. Email us at themovievaultpod@gmail.com.
Let's do a MySpace push.
We should do a big push into
If
MySpace.
we get 10 followers on MySpace in the next year.
I really love the idea of doing a Facebook group, but I need to do it at a time that I'll actually like do something and not just like start something and not do something.
Just do it this summer.
Yeah. So maybe in the summer we'll start a Facebook group, and then that will like be how we decide.
I'll get our
movies.
elderly generation.
Yeah.
Demographics
I think
up.
our demographic is really in the older population range.
Seriously?
Truly. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I think I mean I know you're joking, but we're really like mostly in the 18 to 22 range.
Yeah, we are.
Because it's just we attract that.
Well, the thing is, we're also not like, people, since we're not that old. I don't think we'll attract as mature of an audience because they'll listen to us and they'll be like, oh, they're just kids, they don't know.
Just
anything.
wait until.
Which might be true. Like I've only logged at like a little over 500 movies on Letterboxd. Maybe check back with me when I'm at 1,500. Hopefully that's not soon, but just so I'm like actually doing useful things with my life, but and have like a little bit more experience.
Hey, when we have our jobs one day and
We're still doing this.
Yeah, and
somehow
we review movies and then just randomly go out into talking about the healthcare system and how it's only deteriorated since 2023.
Yeah.
Then we can get some traction going.
True.
We need to come up with like a clever, like a catch, like a hook. I don't know, something flashy and clever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything has a catch that gets people in.
That's true.
You know? We're only 85 episodes in. And
I mean, we're still toying around with stuff. I mean, if you listened in the early days, you would hear the 10-point system. We had all kinds of stuff. We had Brita moments with Brita for a while.
Oh my gosh.
We had
about that. It's been over a year.
What else did we have? We definitely had some other stuff that we tried to do.
Oh, we did a little news thing for a little bit.
We did a little news. That was fun, but
I liked it. It just took up time.
It took up time. And now we have so much to say about the actual movies. Well, or not say.
Well, this movie's nice, yeah. we talked about will the other one go out before this?
Yeah.
We talked about, what was it?
National Treasure.
We talked about it for like 5 minutes and talked about
I don't even know that we talked about it for 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's not a mandatory episode to listen to.
No.
It's more of a
That's like a spin-off of the canon. There's definitely ones. I was listening to another podcast and they did like it was like their 300th episode or something. Ooh. And they did like a I'll just shout out the podcast. It's called The Greatest Moments of Our Lives because one of the guys from the podcast, I followed him on Letterboxd and he followed me back. So I thought that was cool. Wow. So I'm shouting them out. Maybe I'll shout him out on actual Letterboxd too. But anyway, my point with this is that they did a Donnie Darko episode and early on, and then they were like, oh, we didn't think that was that good, so we revisited it. And I'm like, well, yeah, we'll probably do that at some point. Like there'll probably be some movies.
Just with the ones worth doing.
Yeah, just with the ones we're not doing.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about which ones we would do that with. But I just thought that was interesting. And also it was just like they started in like 2016 and we're still doing it in like 2023. And it's like slowly they had gotten I don't even think they're huge, but they'd gotten a little bit bigger.
Do you think we'll ever solidify some type of structure?
I don't know. Are we like structured people?
I don't know. This is an off-cast conversation.
I think in order to do that, we would have to do more research before our podcasts.
All right, then we will never ever have a structure.
and then maybe sometimes I would love to do more research, but that means that I need to implement even more discipline into my life.
I think it'll be more like seasons. There'll be seasons of structure, seasons of
I honestly think we'll have seasons of podcasts. Sure. Too. I think we never have, and we probably never will do 52 podcasts in a year that are all 52 straight weeks. But that's okay.
I think we've done about 30 per year.
We've done about 30 per year.
Because it's been over 3 years.
And I think that's healthy. But maybe we could like make it more defined for the listeners at some point. Anyway, now that if you've even stayed tuned for our
we're still talking
on podcast conversation, maybe we'll actually shut the vault now.
Yeah, what are we gonna do next? Do we have any idea? After finals, though, I have finals.
Probably after finals, we'll probably hammer some multiple ones.
I think we should do a series, another series. I liked the Lord of the Rings one.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. Somebody was wanting me to do a series. Somebody wanted us to do Harry Potter, but that's like 8 movies.
That's my answer.
No.
I don't care who it is.
Maybe we'll find a different series. What about the M. Night Shyamalan one?
How about Marvel?
Marvel. Every single Marvel one?
Yeah, in every episode.
I think I listened to a podcast that's how they started. They started by reviewing every single Marvel movie up to that point.
Then, yeah.
But now that everyone's done that.
No, I think
it was Matt Crosby. Follow Matt Crosby on.
We should do. I don't know. We can think about it. All right. Well, we'll do a series soon, and maybe Paddington.
Yeah, maybe Paddington.
That's just something I thought of. And we actually have a couple people that we wanted to get on. It's just those people have been busy. We've been busy.
Yeah, we had a couple things on my end I had some exciting things, and then I messed it up. But that's okay. Maybe eventually we'll get those things to work out.
It's all right. I also have a prospect I haven't told you about. I'll let you know.
All right.
So, all right. With that, I'll say the closing vault. Okay. Ding, ding, ding. Time to go to the pub.
Bow, bow, bow.
So?